Bottom Line Africa. It's exactly 40 minutes past the hour. Those are just some of the messages of condolences coming right across the world after that heinous act that claimed the lives of 14 innocent people at Riverside Drive right in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. In studio, as I promised you, I have Moura Kabata, who's a human rights lawyer, and Tabitha Mwangi, who's a research associate on counter-terrorism studies at the Center for International and Security Studies. Perhaps they're going to talk us through about what this particular attack means, not just for Kenya, but for the security situation in the Horn of Africa. Welcome, Moura and Tabitha, ladies and gentlemen. And Moura, let me just begin with you. We've seen the various terrorist attacks that took place in this country. The recent one, the Westgate attack, where these same terrorist elements have been separating Muslims from Christians. I mean, this time round, we've not seen that kind of a situation. What are you reading in this from where you're seated first?
Thank you, Yusuf. Terrorism has no place within religion. Let's start with that. I mean, it is a narrative that perhaps has been attempted to be sold post the millennium. However, it is not accurate. Terrorism knows no religion, knows no creed, knows no tribe or race, even gender. It knows of no consideration at all. It is backed by its own fundamental ideals that differ from the rest of society, because as a matter of fact, terrorism is not acceptable. It finds itself at an opposite of what is agreed upon by a majority of those who live on earth and call themselves human beings. So whatever agenda is trying to be displayed or portrayed, that it is a religious movement, or it finds placing within a religious sect, is actually wrong and very false, and needs to be separated. The truth, in fact, is it is led by its own selfish ideals and demands, which have no place in religion. In this one specifically, you will see that it was discriminate. The victims are of diverse backgrounds. So that position needs actually to be clarified on the onset.
Moura, we're going to talk shortly about how communication has been trickling in from the point of authority to the rest of the people, especially family members of those who have lost their loved ones. But Tabitha, from your own experience, let's talk about the security agencies, the multi-agency operation that we've seen. Yesterday I was on the ground, and it's not just the Wrecking Squad, you know, the common GSU officers that we're used to. We've even seen officers from the Kenya Air Force, you know, manning the area from above. How would you assess the security agencies and how they acted this time around?
I will commend them for working together, because it is not until they come together and work towards a common goal that they can get to the bottom of what happened and help to save as many people as possible. I think this comes from lessons learned in 9/11, where the FBI was doing one thing and the other security agencies in the United States were doing their own thing with no inter-organizational collaboration, which made it very difficult for them to counter terrorist attacks in the United States. And moving forward post 9/11, the international community, including Kenya, realized that we need all the hands that we can get to work on these goals, so that we can be able to, first of all, get to neutralize the attackers as fast as possible, get to save as many people as we can within the shortest time possible without endangering people.
It was a very delicate operation, right?
Yes, yes. I've seen people complaining that, oh, it took too long, the officials were not serious because it took a very long time, but I think it will be best for them to take as much time as is possible to save every life possible, because any single life lost is one too many. So I will commend them for working together. And this is something that has been happening in Kenya in the last few years. We have international organizations, we have civic organizations, we have the law enforcement agencies such as the NCTC working closely with even international partners such as UNDP and the European Union, making sure that everybody is on the same page working towards the same goal. And this is quite commendable.
Moura, I'm sure you'd like to talk about how the security agencies performed this time around before we even talk about how communication has been trickling in from the point of authority to the rest of us.
I think there are many lessons that we have learned, as my sister is saying, with the war on global terror, including our homegrown lessons from past incidences of terror back in '98, in around 2001 with the twin attacks at the airport and the hotel in Mombasa, and currently, most recently, without the incidences of yesterday, the Westgate attack. It is commendable, and I agree with what my sister is saying, that our security officers have indeed grasped with the reality of what terror is, and they are now what we must call a force that is reliable upon when these incidences happen. In terms of the responses that we saw yesterday, and as my sister is saying, the prolonged period does not necessarily mean that they are inactive or ineffective. In fact, it is a culmination of a lot of effort from the joint forces of security to ensure that more lives, in fact, are saved. So indeed, it was a good job.
Yes, Tabitha, I'm going to come to you shortly. And of course, the fact that, they've averted what could have been a fully blown crisis, because Chiromo campus is just next to ground zero, that is the hotel that came under attack. But for now, let me just take our viewers a ride to Jamia Mosque, I believe, where leaders from the SUPKEM are now addressing the press. Let's listen to what they have to say.
Ili Mungu atupende kwa umoja wetu na kumwomba Mwenyezi Mungu kila mara na kurudi kwa Mwenyezi Mungu ndilo jambo litekana. Wassalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for coming. Asante sana. Okay?
Yes.
We have our reporters on the ground. I'm sure they've managed to catch the full speech there of the press by the leaders from the SUPKEM there, because we had reached them at the tail end of that briefing. But I still have Maura and Tabitha. And Tabitha, we're talking about the fact that the security agencies averted what could have been a fully blown crisis, because Garissa University attack is still very much fresh in Kenya's, many people's mind, especially in Kenya. And the fact that Chiromo campus is just next to the hotel that came under attack, they evacuated in good time. I mean, it's something that should be commended, right?
Yes, this is something that is quite commendable. It shows that our law enforcement agencies keep learning from the mistakes of the past, and the fact that they were able to evacuate these students without raising too much alarm and making sure that even the 700 people that the president mentioned who got evacuated from this, it shows that Kenya has matured enough to be able to deal with such events in a very professional way, trying to save as many lives as possible, which is very commendable.
Fantastic. Maura, from a human rights perspective, you're a human rights lawyer once again. Let's talk about the communication, the flow of communication from those who are from the point of authority. We're talking about the Inspector General of Police, the Interior Cabinet Secretary. I mean, how would you assess that? Because their family members were saying they've been in the dark for the last 18 or so hours.
There is usually a competing balancing act between having a right to information and, in fact, balancing the rights of others or the rights of, security forces that are actually on the ground. Now, be this as it may, you will realize that the Constitution guarantees a fundamental right to information. Hence, if someone is holding information that affects you, you ought to be given that information promptly. So how information is trickling in perhaps also may be balanced through a national security organ parameter, so that it has limits. Nonetheless, the Constitution also guarantees that you ought to be given that information. So I have a feeling that as things are clearing out, then there is the possibility, which is also based on the fact that the security organs would disseminate this information to the members of the public and the families affected. Because it is important that these families also obtain some form of closure into this matter as we are heading forward into uniting the country again.
Tabitha, when you talk about communication, I'd like you to comment on the same as well. But when you talk about communication, there's no way we can avoid social media as well. What have you seen so far on social media? How have Kenyans acted? In comparison, of course, with other attacks before.
Okay. This time, when the attack happened at first, there was a lot of panic on social media and people saying all sorts of things. Some were saying it's a robbery gone bad. Others were saying, oh, there's blasts going on, there's gunshots everywhere. And there were people like texting and saying, please do not call people at in these buildings, just text them if you can, if you really have to text them. And there was also the circulation of misleading information that you can call, I think someone called Anthony, which was later called out by the police as something that was misleading. And I think one of the best things that our law enforcement agencies did was to come out and clearly say, these are the phone numbers that we expect people to call. So now you're directing everybody to one central place. Something else that is good about that is that about the government's response has been how they have not looked like they're panicking. They've come out very confidently and told us just what we need to know. Because remember, when this incident is going on, we need to collect as much intelligence as we can to know who was behind this, where did we go wrong? And if we release that information without really saving what is supposed to be in the public domain and what should not be there, then we are doing ourselves an injustice in making more loopholes for our law enforcement.
Well done, Tabitha. I think the secret there is verify before sharing any information, because I was shocked. I was with a police officer on the ground yesterday, only to wake up this morning and see his pictures left, right and center, people saying that he's one of the terrorists on the ground. Actually, he's one of the officers who literally, you know, was there in the line of fire, helping those people who were holed up in that hotel. So, Maura, you just have a minute. Can you perhaps talk about how social media has been used this time around?
The strength of social media is something which is phenomenal. I mean, even you guys in the media, I mean, it has to affect you in how you disseminate information because of the prompt nature in how the person on the ground can actually be relaying that information to the public audience out there without the necessity of transferring it through main media like you guys. So, for instance, I got this information through my brother who works in the same complex. And I have my own experiences with how I receive that message. Going forward is we can see even how it affects other people negatively by the small incidences where perhaps it gets the wrong story out there, which later on might not be clarified, or if it is clarified, the damage itself has already been done.
So we have to be careful.
For instance, there's a specific case of the gentleman who was arrested. His name is Bryson Momburi, who it is alleged, even through mainstream media, that he is one of the suspects. In fact, he is not. And he was, in fact,
he happens to work there.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Maura Kabata, for your input as a human rights lawyer, as well as Tabitha Mwangi, a researcher, associate on counterterrorism studies at the Center for International and Security Studies. Of course, you'll be watching Bottom Line Africa right on KTN News, even as we give you rolling coverage of this very sad incident that took place here right in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. We still have our reporters on the ground. We have them at the hotel that was the Cayman attack. Of course, the operation has been called off now, but according to the Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i is saying that you know, investigations are still ongoing. You know, officers, they're trying to gather crucial evidence moving forward. That brings us to the end of the program, but the coverage continues right here on KTN News. Bye-bye for now.